Happy Monday, New Mexico. Today's monsoon awareness topic is flash flooding. We remind everybody to know the dangers of flash flooding, and we're really just going to try and heighten some awareness about some of those dangers. Flash flooding has been responsible for many deaths in New Mexico, unfortunately. In fact, it's been responsible for about 64 deaths since 1959. So we'd like to remind everybody about the importance of flash flooding and some of the dangers that they pose. We'll first start out by defining what is a flash flood. Well, flash flooding is really just intense rainfall that falls over a very brief period, usually on the order of just about 1 to 6 hours, and can often fall over a very small area as well. But basically it's raining so hard and so fast that the ground just cannot absorb the rainfall, so it turns to runoff, and that's where you start having problems. It's often associated with the summer thunderstorms that we see during the monsoon season. And then New Mexico is full of diverse and varied terrain, and that really just increases the threat for flash flooding. That really just raises the speed of the water as it flows downhill and downslope, so that really can add to the problems and hazards that flash flooding poses. When is flash flooding most likely? Well, we're talking about Monsoon Awareness Week, which happens generally July, August, and into September, and that's when flash flooding is most prevalent throughout New Mexico. You'll see the stats over there in the lower right image. July and August really kind of take center stage for flash flooding. If we look at flash flooding events by the hour, we can see that flash flooding generally occurs in the late afternoon to early evening hours. So the stats here are broken down by hour, starting out around midnight there on the left, and then as you go forward by an hour, as you progress to the right of the image, you'll see those values really spike in the late afternoon to early evening hours. And that shouldn't be surprising. We know here in New Mexico that the summer thunderstorms generally do develop in the late afternoon into the early evening hours. So if we talk about flood fatalities, we mentioned that unfortunately 64 New Mexico fatalities have been observed since 1959. And it's notable that 66% of these flash flood deaths occurred in automobiles. So there's a lot of hazards on the roads out there while driving. When you are out there on the road, we urge everybody to just remember that only 6 inches of water can cause you to fully lose control of your vehicle. That's when the water really starts to become problematic, and then once you get up to about a foot of water, that can completely float your car or truck. Once you rise up to about 2 feet of water, and once you get that water to moving, that can quickly carry away a car or a truck. So it really doesn't take too much water, and once that water starts moving, that really can cause some big time problems. It's also important when you're on the road to remember that the depth of water is not always obvious. If you do encounter a low water crossing, such as some of the images are depicting here, you may not know how deep that water is, and you may not even know if it's scoured out the road beneath it. That's also important to remember. So we remind everybody to just turn around, don't drown. Don't drive around the barricades if law enforcement has placed those in there. And then don't be like the people here in this image that are congregating around the floodwaters. Step back and get to higher ground and just stay away from those floodwaters. We'll shift gears a little bit now and talk about arroyos. Arroyos are not only hazards in some of the rural areas with natural arroyos, but there are also some man-made arroyos within our urban areas, full of concrete and artificially laid out. But it's important to remember that those arroyos, they're not skate parks or bicycle parks. A lot of youth like to take their skateboards and their bicycles into those arroyos and play, but really they are not safe places to be, especially during the summer thunderstorm season or the monsoon season. Those normally dry arroyos, they can turn into raging torrents in just a matter of minutes. It's also important to remember that arroyos can flood even when the nearest storm is several miles away. So it doesn't have to be immediately raining right on top of you if you're in an arroyo, but upstream a thunderstorm may have passed. You may not have even heard it or seen it, but that can cause torrential runoff, and that can take a while before it reaches your location, but once the water gets going, it can move very fast and be very dangerous. Thank you for joining us with Monsoon Awareness Week. We'll continue with our topics throughout the week.